The Vellani Empire had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. They had conquered 47 different species across 3 galactic arms. Their method was always the same. They would find a primitive world, descend upon it with overwhelming force, capture the population for slave labor, and strip the planet of its resources. No species had ever successfully resisted them. The Vellani believed they were the supreme beings in the universe, and their long history of easy victories had made them certain of this fact. When their scout vessels first detected Earth, a small blue planet orbiting an unremarkable yellow star, they saw nothing special. The planet had 7 billion soft-skinned bipeds who called themselves humans. These creatures had crude technology. They still used combustion engines to power their vehicles. Their communication networks were primitive. Most importantly, they had no unified planetary defense system. The different nations of Earth spent more time fighting each other than preparing for threats from beyond their world. Commander Torvak, a veteran of 30 successful harvests, reviewed the scout reports in his quarters aboard the mothership. He saw the images of human cities, their military vehicles, their weapons. He laughed. These humans had projectile weapons that fired small metal pieces. They had explosive devices that could destroy buildings. But they had nothing that could scratch the shields of a Vellani warship. "Begin the harvest," he ordered. "Standard protocol. This should take no more than 6 months." The first landing ships entered Earth's atmosphere on a Tuesday morning. They descended simultaneously on major population centers across the globe. In New York, London, Tokyo, Mumbai, and dozens of other cities, massive shadows fell from the sky as Vellani cruisers blocked out the sun. In Seoul, South Korea, a man named Do-Hyun Park was eating breakfast with his family when the shadow passed over their apartment building. His wife Yuna dropped her chopsticks. Their 7-year-old daughter Somi ran to the window and pointed at the enormous ship hovering over the city. "What is that?" Somi asked. Do-Hyun did not answer. He was a sergeant in the Korean Special Forces, and he had trained for many scenarios. But nothing had prepared him for this. He watched as smaller vessels detached from the main cruiser and descended toward the streets below. The Vellani shock troops were tall, gray-skinned creatures with 4 arms and eyes that glowed a soft orange. They wore armor that seemed to absorb light, and they carried weapons that fired beams of energy. When they marched into the streets of Seoul, they did not speak or negotiate. They simply began collecting. The energy beams did not kill. They stunned. Humans dropped where they stood, unconscious, and the Vellani soldiers loaded them onto transport pods like farmers harvesting crops. Anyone who ran was shot down. Anyone who hid was found by scanning devices that could detect body heat through concrete walls. Do-Hyun watched the chaos unfold from his window. Police officers fired their handguns at the Vellani soldiers, but the bullets bounced harmlessly off their armor. A military truck arrived, and soldiers opened fire with automatic weapons. The Vellani did not even slow down. One of them raised the device, and the truck's engine exploded. The soldiers were stunned and collected like everyone else. "We have to hide," Yuna whispered, clutching Somi to her chest. "There is nowhere to hide," Do-Hyun said. He had seen the scanning devices. He knew that hiding would only delay the inevitable. But fighting seemed equally hopeless. Then he saw something that changed his mind. A young woman, perhaps 20 years old, picked up a fallen soldier's rifle and fired at a Vellani from behind. The beam weapon she had taken from a dead alien struck the creature in the back of the head, where its armor was thinner. The Vellani fell, and for a moment, everyone on the street froze. The aliens could be killed. Do-Hyun made his decision. He kissed Yuna and Somi, memorizing their faces, burning the image into his mind. "Hide in the basement," he told them. "Stay quiet. I will find you. Where are you going?" Yuna asked, tears streaming down her face. to learn how to fight them. He grabbed his service rifle, knowing it was probably useless, and disappeared into the chaos of the city. Within 72 hours, the Villani had collected approximately 800,000 humans from the Korean peninsula alone. Similar numbers were being reported from every major population center. The aliens were efficient. They worked in shifts, never stopping, never resting. They sorted their captives by age and physical condition, separating the strong from the weak, the young from the old. The world's military forces tried to respond. Fighter jets were launched against the Villani cruisers, but their missiles exploded harmlessly against the alien shields. Tanks rolled toward the landing zones, but electromagnetic pulses disabled them before they could fire a single shot. Nuclear weapons were considered, but the Villani ships had positioned themselves over populated areas. Any nuclear strike would kill millions of humans to destroy a single enemy vessel. Admiral Yong-Soo Kim of the Republic of Korea Navy watched Seoul burn from the bridge of his destroyer. His entire fleet had been rendered powerless. The engines were dead. Communications were severed. Every electronic system on his ship had been fried by a single pulse from the alien mothership. He was not a man who gave up easily. He had served his country for 30 years, rising through the ranks through dedication and intelligence. Now, as he watched his world being conquered, he felt something he had never felt before in his military career: helplessness. But helplessness was not the same as hopelessness. Admiral Kim found a piece of paper and a pen. Old technology. Technology the Villani apparently had not thought to disable. He wrote a message and gave it to his most trusted officer. "Take a small boat," he ordered. "Row to shore. Find other military commanders. Deliver this message." The message was simple. Do not engage directly. Observe. Learn. Survive. Our time will come. Across the planet, similar scenes played out. Governments collapsed or went into hiding. World leaders were captured or killed. The United Nations building in New York was turned into a Villani command center. The global communication networks were destroyed, isolating communities from each other. But humans are social creatures. They find ways to communicate. They find ways to organize. And most importantly, they find ways to resist. In the mountains of Gangwon Province, a young physicist named Ji-won Lee watched the invasion from the window of her research facility. Her colleagues had fled or been captured, but she had stayed behind. Not because she was brave, but because she had noticed something. A Villani drone had crashed in the forest nearby, damaged by a lightning strike during a storm. It was the first piece of alien technology that humans had a chance to study. Ji-won hiked through the forest and found the drone. It was the size of a car, humming with energy that made her hair stand on end. She knew nothing about alien technology. She was an expert in quantum physics, not engineering. But she also knew that every technology, no matter how advanced, operated on fundamental principles. She dragged the drone back to her laboratory and began to study it. The Villani returned to their mothership with their cargo of human slaves, satisfied with the day's work. Commander Torvak reviewed the harvest numbers and smiled. The operation was proceeding exactly as predicted. These humans were proving to be excellent specimens, strong and healthy, perfect for labor in the Empire's mining colonies. At this rate, we will meet our quota in 4 months, his second officer reported. Excellent, Torvik said. These primitives are even easier than the last species. No resistance worth mentioning. He could not have been more wrong. In basements and caves, in forests and mountains, in every corner of the conquered planet, humans were watching, learning, preparing. They had awakened something in humanity that the Villani could not understand. Something that had driven humans to survive ice ages, plagues, and wars. Something that made them different from every other species the Empire had ever encountered. the will to fight back. And when humans fight back, they do not stop until they win. 3 months had passed since the Villani first descended upon Earth. The world had changed beyond recognition. 200 million humans had been loaded onto slave ships and transported to distant mining colonies. Major cities lay in ruins, their streets empty except for Villani patrols and the occasional scavenger searching for food. Governments had collapsed. The old order was gone. The Villani had established processing centers on every continent. These were massive facilities where captured humans were sorted, tagged, and prepared for transport. The aliens had built these centers with casual efficiency, confident that their conquest was complete. They posted minimal guards and ran skeleton crews at night. Why would they need more security? The humans were beaten. The harvest was almost complete. But beneath the surface of this conquered world, something was happening. Something the Villani had never encountered in their 10,000 years of conquest. Humans were organizing. In a bunker deep beneath the mountains of Gangwon Province, Dr. Jiwon Lee had not slept in 3 days. The Villani drone she had recovered was spread across her laboratory in dozens of pieces. She had taken it apart, component by component, trying to understand how it worked. The power source is incredible, she explained to the small group of scientists who had joined her. It generates energy from quantum fluctuations. We have theories about this technology, but we never thought it was possible. Can we replicate it? Asked Dr. Sung-Ho Kang, a materials engineer who had escaped the Soul Harvest. Eventually. But that is not the most important discovery. Jiwon pointed to a series of equations on her whiteboard. They're shields. Everyone thinks the shields are impenetrable. They are not. The shields operate on a rotating frequency pattern. If we can synchronize our weapons to match the frequency at the exact moment of rotation, we can punch through. How do we synchronize our weapons? I am working on that. The bunker had become the center of the Korean resistance. Every day, more survivors arrived. Former soldiers, engineers, doctors, farmers. They brought supplies, information, and most importantly, hope. Admiral Yong-Soo Kim had established contact with resistance groups across Asia, using a network of messengers and old radio equipment that the Villani had overlooked. Sergeant Do-Heem Park arrived at the bunker after 3 months of guerrilla warfare. He was thinner now, harder. He had spent 90 days fighting in the shadows of Seoul, ambushing Villani patrols, rescuing captured civilians, and gathering intelligence. He had lost count of how many aliens he had killed. I found a weakness, he reported to General Taeyong Choi, the highest-ranking military officer in the resistance. The processing centers? They are not well guarded at night. The Villani rotate skeleton crews between midnight and dawn. General Choi studied the map on the wall. Red dots marked known Villani positions. Blue dots marked resistance cells. There were more blue dots every day. We cannot attack the processing centers with our current weapons, the general said. Our bullets cannot penetrate their armor. Then we need new weapons. We are working on that. Captain Minji Beek was the Resistance's intelligence chief. She was a former analyst who had worked for the National Intelligence Service before the invasion. Now she coordinated information gathering across the entire peninsula. I have obtained something useful, she said, pulling up a holographic display on a stolen Villani tablet. This is a map of their global operations. There are 17 processing centers in the Asia-Pacific region alone, 43 in Europe, 38 in North America. Where did you get this? General Choi asked. We captured a Villani officer 2 weeks ago. He talked eventually. The general did not ask what methods had been used to make the officer talk. In war, some things were necessary. If we could hit all the processing centers simultaneously, Captain Minji continued, we could free millions of captives and cripple their operations. That would require coordination with resistance groups on every continent. Yes, it would. The resistance leaders looked at each other. Before the invasion, such coordination would have been impossible. The nations of Earth had too many conflicts, too much distrust, too many old wounds. But the Villani had done something remarkable. They had given humanity a common enemy. Admiral Kim began sending messages through the underground network to resistance leaders in China, Japan, Russia, Europe, Africa, the Americas. The message was simple. We are building weapons that can hurt them. When we are ready, we strike together. The replies came slowly, traveling through hidden channels, passed from hand to hand across continents. But they all said the same thing. We are with you. Meanwhile, Dr. Jiwan worked day and night on the frequency synchronization problem. She slept in 2-hour intervals, surviving on instant noodles and determination. Her team grew as more scientists escaped the harvest and found their way to the bunker. I think I have it, she announced one morning, her eyes red from lack of sleep. She held up a small device, no larger than a cell phone. This attaches to any projectile weapon. It reads the shield frequency and adjusts the projectile's electromagnetic signature to match. In theory, a standard rifle bullet could penetrate Villani armor. In theory? General Choi asked. We need to test it. They tested it that night. Do-hyun led a small team to ambush a Villani patrol on the outskirts of Chunshin. 3 soldiers against 5 aliens. Normally, those odds would be suicide. Do-hyun attached a frequency device to his rifle and waited in the shadows. The Villani patrol approached, their orange eyes scanning the darkness. They did not see the humans hidden in the ruins of a convenience store. Do-hyun aimed at the lead alien and fired. The bullet pierced the Villani's chest armor and exited through its back. The creature fell, dead before it hit the ground. Its companions turned, raising their weapons, but Do-hyun's team was already firing. 4 more shots. 4 more dead aliens. It works, Do-hyun whispered into his radio. Doctor, your device works. Back at the bunker, Jiwan allowed herself to smile for the first time in 3 months. The resistance began manufacturing the frequency devices in secret workshops across the peninsula. They could not make enough for everyone, but they made enough. Every day, more Villani patrols disappeared. Every night, more supplies were stolen from alien warehouses. The Villani noticed the increased resistance. They responded the way they always had when conquered species became troublesome. They burned villages. They executed prisoners. They displayed bodies in public squares as a warning. They thought this would break human morale. They did not understand humans. Every burned village created more resistance fighters. Every execution made the survivors angrier. Every displayed body reminded humanity what they were fighting for. Captain Minji intercepted a Villani communication that made her laugh out loud. Commander Torvak is confused, she reported to the general. He cannot understand why the punitive measures are not working. According to his experience, conquered species always submit after such displays. What is his conclusion? He believes the humans are simply too primitive to understand the message. He has ordered increased harvesting to replace the troublesome elements with more compliant captives. General Choi shook his head. He still does not understand. No, he does not. The Villani had conquered 47 species with this method. They had never failed. Every species they encountered had eventually submitted, broken by overwhelming force and systematic terror. But humans were different. Humans had been fighting each other for thousands of years. They had survived ice ages, plagues, famines, and world wars. They had developed a psychological resilience that no other species possessed. When you push a human down, they get back up. When you hurt them, they get angry. When you try to break them, they break you instead. In his bunker, General Choi looked at the map of processing centers around the world. The resistance network was in place. The weapons were ready. The captives in those centers were waiting, hoping, praying for rescue. "We attack in 6 months," he announced. "On the anniversary of the invasion. Every processing center. Every continent simultaneously. Can we be ready by then?" Admiral Kim asked. "We have to be." In the darkness of the bunker, surrounded by survivors and scientists and soldiers, humanity prepared its counterattack. They had been knocked down, but they were not beaten. They had been hurt, but they were not broken. And when they rose up, the Villani would learn what it meant to face an enemy that refused to submit. 6 months had passed since the Villani first landed on Earth. The anniversary of the invasion arrived on a cold winter morning. Snow fell on the ruins of Seoul. Ice covered the empty highways. The world was silent, waiting. At exactly 3 o'clock in the morning, humanity struck back. The attack began simultaneously across every continent. Resistance cells that had been hiding, preparing, and training for months emerged from the shadows. They carried weapons modified with Dr. Jiwon's frequency devices. They knew the patrol patterns, the guard rotations, the weaknesses of every processing center. In Bizen, Sergeant Doan Park led an assault team of 30 fighters against a facility that held 20,000 captives. The processing center was a massive structure of alien metal, surrounded by fences and guard towers. 200 Villani soldiers protected it. "Remember your training," Do-hyun told his team. "Aim for the gaps in their armor. Neck, joints, back of the head. Move fast. Do not stop." They attacked at the moment the night shift was changing. Half the guards were heading to their quarters, tired and careless. The other half were just arriving, not yet alert. It was the perfect moment of vulnerability. Do-hyun fired the first shot. His bullet passed through a Villani's neck, and the alien fell. His team followed, pouring through the main gate like water through a broken dam. The Villani were caught completely by surprise. They had never faced an enemy that could hurt them. They had never trained for defensive combat. They stood their ground and fired their energy weapons, but Do-hyun's team was fast, moving from cover to cover, never staying in one place long enough to be targeted. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it was over, 200 Villani soldiers lay dead. Do-hyun had lost 7 of his 30 fighters. "Open the holding cells," he ordered. The cells were underground, connected by long corridors lit by cold blue lights. The captives inside were thin, dirty, and exhausted. They had been waiting for transport to the mining colonies. They had given up hope. When the doors opened and human soldiers walked in, the captives did not understand at first. A woman near the front of the first cell started crying. "Are you real?" she asked. "Is this real?" "It is real," Do-hyun said. "We are here to take you home." He walked through the corridors, looking at every face. He was searching for 2 specific people. 2 people he had not seen in 6 months. 2 people he had thought about every single day. He found them in the last cell. Yuna was holding Somi in her arms, both of them asleep on the cold floor. They were thinner than he remembered. Their clothes were torn, but they were alive. "Yuna," he said softly. She opened her eyes. For a moment, she did not recognize him. Then her face changed, and she let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "You came," she whispered. "I promised I would." Across the world, similar scenes were playing out. In Berlin, Captain Hans Müller led an assault on the European Processing Center. In New York, Sergeant Maria Santos fought her way through the ruins of Manhattan. In Beijing, in Mumbai, in Cairo, in Sao Paulo, humans rose up and attacked. The frequency devices worked exactly as Dr. Jiwon had designed. Bullets that should have bounced off Villani armor now passed through like knives through paper. The aliens died by the hundreds, then by the thousands. By dawn, 17 processing centers had been liberated. By noon, the number had risen to 41. By evening, the Villani had lost control of almost every ground facility on Earth. Commander Torvak received the reports aboard his mothership with growing disbelief. His officers brought him update after update, and each one was worse than the last. The Brisbane facility has fallen, Commander. The Moscow facility has fallen, Commander. The Lagos facility has fallen, Commander. This is impossible, Torvak growled. They are primitives. How are they doing this? His second officer, Veleth, approached cautiously. Commander, our soldiers report that the human weapons have changed. They can now penetrate our armor. Changed? Changed how? We do not know, Commander. We are analyzing captured weapons, but we have found nothing unusual. Torvak slammed his 4 fists against the console. Send reinforcements. Launch the dropships. Crush them. The Villani dropships descended toward the battlefields, carrying fresh soldiers and heavy weapons. They expected to find disorganized rebels that could be easily destroyed. They found something very different. Lieutenant Hyun Woo-song stood on a hilltop, overlooking the outskirts of Bizan. He had been an artillery officer before the invasion, but his guns had been useless against the alien shields. Now he had something better. Dr. Ji-won's team had not stopped at small arms. They had built surface-to-air weapons using power cells from captured Villani equipment. These weapons could generate beams of energy that matched the alien technology. Hyun-woo watched the dropships approach through his targeting system. There were 12 of them, flying in formation, confident in their superiority. Target acquired, he said into his radio. Firing. The missile leaped from its launcher and streaked toward the lead dropship. It struck the vessel shields, matched the frequency, and passed through. The explosion tore the dropship apart from the inside. The other dropships scattered, but it was too late. More missiles were launching from positions across the city. Resistance fighters who had been hiding for months emerged with weapons they had built in secret. The sky filled with fire and falling debris. In 10 minutes, all 12 dropships were destroyed. Not a single one reached its target. Similar scenes played out across the planet. The Villani air superiority, which had been absolute since the first day of the invasion, crumbled in a matter of hours. Their dropships burned. Their patrol craft fell from the sky. Their reinforcements never arrived. Commander Torvak stared at his tactical display. Red icons, representing destroyed units and lost facilities, covered the map of Earth. He had never seen anything like this. In 30 harvests across 47 conquered worlds, he had never faced a species that fought back so effectively. Commander, Vela said, his voice shaking, we are receiving reports that the humans have captured 3 of our orbital shuttles. Intact. Captured? Not destroyed? They are. Learning to fly them, Commander. Torvik felt something unfamiliar. It took him a moment to recognize it because he had not felt it in over 100 years. Fear. How? He whispered. How are they doing this? They had nothing 6 months ago. They were primitives. Veleth did not have an answer. On the ground, the liberation continued. 20,000 captives from the Bizan facility were being led to safety by resistance fighters. Medical teams treated the wounded. Families reunited, crying and laughing together. Dohyun walked through the crowd with Yuna and Somi. His daughter held his hand so tightly that it hurt. She had not let go since he found her. I knew you would come, Somi said. I told everyone. I said my father would come. I will always come for you, Dohyun said. No matter what. General Choi contacted him by radio that evening. Sergeant Park, we need you at the command center. We are planning the next phase. The next phase? The Villani still control orbit. They still have their mothership. We have won the battle for Earth, but the war is not over. Do-hyun looked at his wife and daughter. He had just gotten them back. The thought of leaving them again made his heart ache. Yuna saw the expression on his face. She took his hand and squeezed it. "Go," she said. "Finish what you started. We will be here when you return." He kissed them both and walked away into the night. Behind him, the fires of the destroyed processing center still burned. Above him, the Volani mothership hung in orbit, a dark shadow against the stars. The first battle was won, but the war was far from over, and humanity was just getting started. 1 year had passed since the invasion. Earth was no longer a conquered world. It was a fortress. In the 12 months since the uprising, humanity had transformed itself. Shipyards that once built aircraft carriers now constructed starships. Factories that made cars now produced energy weapons. Scientists who had studied theory now built technology that should have taken centuries to develop. Dr. Ji-won Lee stood at the center of it all. She had cracked the secrets of Volani faster than light travel in just 8 months. Her team had built the first human warp engine in a converted submarine factory in Ulsan. The test flight had lasted only 30 seconds, but it had taken them to the moon and back. "We can reach any star in the galaxy," she announced to the assembled military leaders. "We can go wherever they go. We can follow them home." Admiral Yong-soo Kim had been promoted to Fleet Admiral after the liberation. He was now the commander of the United Earth Navy, a force that had not existed 1 year ago. He stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, the first human-built interstellar warship, and looked out at the fleet behind him. 70 vessels. Battleships, cruisers, destroyers. Each one crewed by survivors of the slave harvests. Each one armed with weapons that could match anything the Volani possessed. "Set course for the Volani homeworld," he ordered. Captain Minji Beek had become the fleet's intelligence chief. Her network of spies and captured prisoners had provided detailed information about the Volani Empire. She knew their military strength, their colony locations, their command structure. "The Volani homeworld is called Volani Prime," she briefed the command staff. It is located in the Andromeda sector, approximately 400 light-years from Earth. They have a defense fleet of about 300 vessels. 300 against our 70, General Choi said. "Those are not good odds." "They have never faced an enemy that fights back," Minji replied. "Their tactics are designed for overwhelming primitive species. They have no experience with actual warfare." "That is an assumption." "It is an informed assumption. I have studied every military engagement in Volani history. They always win through superior technology and numbers. When those advantages are removed, they do not know what to do." Admiral Kim considered this. He was not a man who took unnecessary risks, but he also understood that humanity could not simply defend Earth forever. The Volani would return with larger fleets. They would keep coming until Earth was destroyed or humanity was extinct. "We cannot attack them directly," he said. "Not yet. We need allies." This was the second part of the plan. The Volani Empire had conquered 47 species. Each of those species had been enslaved, their populations scattered across mining colonies and labor camps throughout the galaxy. If humanity could free them, turn them into allies, the numbers would change dramatically. "We have identified the closest slave colony," Minji said, bringing up a star map. "It holds a species called the Threll. They were conquered 300 years ago. There are approximately 50 million of them working in asteroid mines. What do we know about them? They are insectoid, about 7 feet tall, very strong. Before their conquest, they had a warrior culture. The Volani use neural suppressors to keep them docile. If we destroy the suppressors, Then we have 50 million very angry warriors who want revenge. The fleet departed Earth 3 days later. The journey to the Thrall colony took 6 hours at faster-than-light speed. When they arrived, they found what they expected: a massive space station orbiting an asteroid field, surrounded by mining ships and cargo vessels. The Volani defense force was minimal: 20 patrol ships and a single command cruiser. They had never needed more security. The Thrall were completely controlled by the neural suppressors. Admiral Kim gave the order to attack. The battle lasted less than an hour. Human weapons tore through Volani shields. Human pilots, trained in months of intensive simulation, outmaneuvered the surprised alien crews. The command cruiser tried to flee, but the Vengeance intercepted it and destroyed its engines. "Board the station," Admiral Kim ordered. "Find the suppressor controls." Sergeant Do-Yoon Park, now commanding a special operations unit, led the boarding team. He had spent the past year training for exactly this kind of mission. His team was the best humanity had, veterans of the liberation who had proven themselves in countless battles. They fought their way through the station's corridors, killing Volani guards who were completely unprepared for close combat. The suppressors were controlled from a central hub in the heart of the station. Do-Hyun reached it in 20 minutes. "I found the controls," he reported. "I can shut them down. Do it." The suppressor field collapsed. Throughout the asteroid mines, 50 million Thrall woke up from a 300-year nightmare. Do-Hyun walked out onto the station's main deck and faced a crowd of Thrall who had gathered there. They were tall and intimidating, with hard shells and multiple limbs. Their eyes showed confusion, then anger, then something like hope. Do-Hyun activated his translation device and spoke. "I am Sergeant Do-Yoon Park of the United Earth Forces. The Volani invaded our world. They took our people as slaves. They thought we would submit. We did not. We fought back. We defeated them. And now we are here to offer you the same choice." The Thrall were silent. Then one of them, larger than the others, stepped forward. He was old, his shell scarred from centuries of hard labor. "You killed the masters?" he asked. "We killed them. You destroyed the pain machines?" "We destroyed them." The old Thrall looked at his people. Then he looked back at Do-Hyun. "What do you want from us?" "We want you to join us. We want to destroy the Volani Empire. We want to free every species they have enslaved. We want justice. And if we refuse, then we leave you here. You are free. You can do whatever you want. But we are going to continue our war with or without you." The old Thrall considered this. Behind him, his people waited in silence. 300 years of slavery. 300 years of suppression. 300 years of hopelessness. And now, for the first time, they had a choice. "My name is Korth," the old Thrall said. "I was a general before the conquest. I have not forgotten how to fight." He stretched his limbs, joints cracking after centuries of disuse. "Where do we begin?" The Thrall joined the alliance. So did the Corvani, an aquatic species who had been forced to work in dry, agonizing conditions. So did the Malik, whose children were taken and raised as soldiers for the Empire. So did a dozen other species, each one freed from Volani control, each one eager for revenge. Within 6 months, the United Fleet had grown from 70 ships to over 500. The crews came from a dozen different species, united by a common hatred of their former masters. The Volani watched their empire crumble with growing terror. Colony after colony went dark. Defense fleet after defense fleet was destroyed. The conquered species they had relied on for labor and soldiers were turning against them. Commander Tovak, who had been recalled to Volani Prime after his failure on Earth, stood before the High Council and delivered his report. "The humans are not like other species," he said. "They do not simply fight. They inspire others to fight. They are turning our entire empire against us. The High Counselor, an ancient Villani who ruled for 500 years, dismissed his concerns. They are primitives. They caught us by surprise, nothing more. We will rebuild our forces and destroy them. With respect, High Counselor, we do not have time. They are coming here. The humans are coming to Villani Prime. Then we will crush them at our doorstep. This is our homeworld. We have defended it for 10,000 years. Torvik wanted to argue, but he knew it was pointless. The High Council had never lost. They could not imagine losing. They did not understand that the universe had changed. Humanity was coming. And when humanity came for you, you did not negotiate. You did not surrender. You did not survive. You simply ceased to exist. The Battle of Villani Prime lasted 47 hours. The Villani had gathered every remaining warship around their homeworld. 500 vessels formed a defensive sphere, the largest military force in their 10,000-year history. Orbital platforms bristled with weapons. Ground batteries covered every approach. The High Council believed this defense was unbreakable. They were wrong. Admiral Young-Soo Kim stood on the bridge of the Vengeance and studied the enemy formation. Behind him, the United Fleet had grown to over 600 ships. Human vessels flew alongside Thrall warships. Kolvani submarines converted for space combat. And Malik fighters piloted by warriors who had once served the Empire. They are expecting a frontal assault, Captain Minji observed. Their entire formation is designed to repel a direct attack. Then we will not give them one. The Admiral divided his forces into 3 groups. The first, led by Captain Minji, would engage the enemy from the far side of the system. Their job was not to win, but to distract, drawing the Villani fleet away from the planet. The second group, under General Choi, would meet the enemy head-on, trading ship for ship in close combat. The third group was small, just 6 vessels, carrying a single assault team. Their target was not the fleet. It was the planet itself. Colonel Do-Yoon Park, promoted after a year of special operations, commanded the assault team. His objective was the Imperial Palace, where the High Council was directing the defense. If they could eliminate the leadership, the Villani command structure would collapse. This is a suicide mission, Yuna had said when he told her about the plan. Every mission I have done in the past 2 years could have been called that. This is different. You are flying into the heart of their homeworld. Do-Yoon had held her close. Somi was asleep in the next room, safe on a colony that the fleet had established far from the front lines. I have to do this, he said. If we do not end this war now, it will never end. They will keep coming. They will rebuild. Our children will have to fight the same battles we fought. Yuna had cried, but she had not asked him to stay. She understood. She had always understood. The battle began at dawn, measured by Earth time. Captain Minji's task force warped into the system and immediately attacked the orbital platforms on the far side of Villani Prime. The Villani fleet responded exactly as predicted, sending 100 ships to intercept. While the enemy was distracted, General Choi's main force engaged the remaining 400 Villani ships. The combat was brutal. Energy beams crossed the void between vessels. Missiles detonated against shields. Ships exploded in silent flowers of flame. The Villani fought hard. They had never faced an enemy this powerful, but they were defending their homeworld. Every soldier knew that failure meant extinction. They threw everything they had at the attackers. But the United Fleet had something the Villani did not. They had species who had been oppressed for centuries, fighting for freedom. They had warriors who had lost everything to the Empire and wanted revenge. They had humans who simply refused to lose. Colonel Do-Hyun's small squadron slipped through the chaos unnoticed. They approached Vellani Prime from a blind spot in the orbital defenses, moving slowly to avoid detection. The planet grew larger in the view screen, a gray world covered in cities and industrial zones. "The palace is on the northern continent," Lieutenant Yungu reported from the pilot's seat. "Shields are cycling every 8 seconds. I can get us through on the next rotation." "Do it." The shuttle accelerated, diving toward the atmosphere. The shields flickered, and for a fraction of a second, a gap appeared. Hyunwoo aimed for that gap with perfect precision. The shuttle passed through and entered the atmosphere. Alarms blared in the palace. The High Council watched their tactical displays with growing horror. The battle in orbit was not going well. The human coalition had already destroyed over 200 Vellani ships. More were falling every minute. "We should evacuate," one of the counselors suggested. "Never," the High Counselor growled. "This is our home. We do not run from primitives." Then the shuttle crashed through the palace's defensive shield and landed in the courtyard. Colonel Do-hyun led his team through the ornate halls of the palace. They met resistance immediately. Palace guards in ceremonial armor tried to stop them. Do-hyun killed 3 of them before they could fire a single shot. His team was efficient, ruthless, unstoppable. They had trained for this moment for a year. They had studied the palace layout from captured data. They knew every corridor, every chamber, every security checkpoint. The throne room doors were reinforced with energy shields. Do-hyun attached an explosive device and stepped back. The explosion tore the doors apart. The High Council sat on elevated platforms, looking down at the humans who had invaded their most sacred space. 12 ancient Vellani, the rulers of an empire that had dominated the galaxy for 10,000 years. "You cannot do this," the High Counselor said, his voice filled with contempt. "We are the Vellani Empire. We have ruled since before your species existed." Do-hyun remembered the processing center in Bazin. He remembered the cells where humans were kept like animals. He remembered finding Yuna and Somi, thin and broken after months of captivity. He remembered the children who cried in the darkness, waiting for help that never came. "Your empire is over," he said. "We will rebuild. We always rebuild. This is not the first time we have faced setbacks. There will be no rebuilding. Not this time. You would not dare destroy us completely. That would make you as monstrous as you claim we are." Do-hyun raised his weapon. "You invaded our home. You enslaved our people. You treated us like livestock. And you thought we would simply accept it." He looked at each of the counselors in turn. "We do not accept. We do not forgive. And we do not forget." The High Counselor showed no fear. He had lived for 500 years. He had faced challenges before. "If you kill us, another council will rise. Our species will continue. Will it?" Do-hyun activated his communicator. "Admiral, we have secured the palace. The High Council is neutralized. What is the status of the fleet?" Admiral Kim's voice came through clearly. "The Vellani fleet has surrendered. Over 300 vessels have laid down their weapons. The remaining ships are attempting to flee, but our allies have them surrounded. And the planet? Under our control. We have ground forces landing at all major cities. The civilian population is not resisting." The High Counselor heard this and his composure finally cracked. For the first time in his long life, he understood that he had lost. Not just a battle or a war, but everything. His empire. His people. His legacy. "What will you do with us?" he asked. Do-hyun lowered his weapon. Killing the council would have been satisfying, but it was not the mission. The mission was justice, not revenge. "You will stand trial," he said, "before all the species you have enslaved. You will answer for 10,000 years of conquest. And then you will face whatever judgment they decide." The trial lasted 6 months. Representatives from 47 species testified about the horrors they had experienced under Vellani rule. Millions of dead, billions enslaved, entire civilizations destroyed. The evidence was overwhelming. The verdict was unanimous. The Vellani High Council was sentenced to spend the rest of their lives on a prison colony, performing the same labor they had forced upon their slaves. The Vellani military was disbanded. Their technology was distributed among the freed species. Their empire was dissolved. Admiral Kim broadcast a message across the galaxy. The Vellani Empire is ended. Any species that wishes to join our coalition is welcome. We do not conquer. We do not enslave. We only ask that you respect the freedom of others as you wish your own freedom to be respected. One by one, the former slave species joined. They formed a new alliance with Earth as a founding member, not because humans were the strongest or the most advanced, but because they had done what no one else had managed in 10,000 years. They had stood up to the masters and won. 5 years later, Colonel Do-Yoon Park retired from military service. He returned to Earth with his family and built a small house in the mountains of Gangwon Province. It was not far from the bunker where the resistance had been born. One evening, his daughter Somi, now 12 years old, asked him a question. Why did the Vellani lose? They were so much stronger than us. Do-Hyun looked out at the stars. They seemed different now. No longer mysterious and threatening, but full of possibility. They thought they knew what we were, he said. They saw primitive technology and soft bodies and assumed we would submit. But they did not understand what makes humans dangerous. What is that? We never give up. No matter how bad it gets, no matter how hopeless it seems, we fight. We adapt, we survive. And when someone hurts our family, we make them pay. Somi considered this. Do you think there are other species out there? Other empires like the Vellani? Probably. Will they try to invade us? Do-Hyun smiled. They can try. In orbit around Earth, the defense fleet maintained its endless patrol. Ships built by humans, crewed by humans and their allies, armed with weapons that could destroy worlds. The blue planet turned slowly below them, peaceful and beautiful. The Vellani had wanted slaves. Humanity gave them extinction, and the galaxy learned a lesson it would never forget. Some species were not meant to be conquered. Some species were born to fight. Some species, when pushed to the edge, would push back so hard that empires would crumble. Humanity was such a species, and they were just getting started.